Welcome to Take Two with Freddy, real talk about second chances, real life, and the power of rewriting your story. I'm Freddy Freundlich, entrepreneur, mentor, and storyteller, and here's the deal. If I didn't walk it, I don't talk it. Each week, we spend a little time together laughing, reflecting, and hopefully walking away a little more awake than when we arrived. So what's on my mind today? There are no atheists in foxholes. Now, that's an old American expression. Some of you listening outside the United States may not have heard it before. A foxhole was literally a hole a soldier would dig in the ground during battle. It was a place to hide from bullets, artillery, and explosions. When the fighting started, soldiers would literally jump into that hole and just pray they survived. And thus the saying goes, there are no atheists in foxholes. Meaning, when you're staring death in the face, everyone is suddenly looking up. And folks, you know something? When I think about that expression, I don't just think about soldiers, because I've had a number of my own foxhole moments. When I was a young man, and those of you who have read my book may remember this, I once found myself running from the police. Now, let me tell you something. I was absolutely petrified. I had been running hard. I was exhausted, injured, and completely out of my wits. And at some point, I ended up climbing onto the roof of a building. Up there, I found a place to hide. I lay down along the drain pipe, right in the gutter along the edge of the roof. I was trying to make myself as small and invisible as possible. And it was terrifying from every angle. First, of course, I was terrified that the police would find me. And I was also terrified that if I moved even just a little, I might slip and fall off the roof. And I have to tell you, maybe the strangest part of that whole story was that even after the police had stopped looking and the noise had died down, and I knew they had clearly left the area, I still couldn't move. I stayed frozen in that exact position for what must have been 2 hours, just lying there. I was completely alone. I was scared, and the only thing going through my mind over and over and over again was, please, if there is a God, please, God, save me. Now, folks, let's think about that moment. At that point in my life, I wasn't having some intellectual discussion about theology. I wasn't debating philosophy. I was in my own little foxhole. And what was coming out of me wasn't about logic. It was about feeling. Now, fast forward many, many years, living where I live today in Israel, where there are sirens and missiles and people running to safe rooms. This expression takes on a very different weight, because I have found when things get real, when life strips everything down to the essentials, something interesting happens inside all of us. And that got me to thinking about something else we talked about in a previous episode, which was names. What's in a name? When we hear a name, it carries a feeling. And when I spoke about this in that last episode, the previous episode, I talked about how our names affect us. But now I want to talk about something differently, about how somebody else's name affects us. Years ago, when I was in university, I knew a girl named Julie. We had a close friendship. It didn't last long, but it was meaningful. And here's the funny thing. Fast forward 40 or 50 years later, when I meet someone named Julie, I still get this warm, fuzzy feeling just from the name. Now, we all have had the opposites of that as well. Maybe you meet someone named John or David or Susan, and instantly something inside of you tightens. Not because of them, just because of someone else from your past with the same name. A name becomes a container for a feeling. And then I start thinking about my own name. Over my life, I've gone through 3 different versions: Frederick, Fred, and Freddy. Now, when you think about these 3 names, Frederick sounds formal, serious, even a little bit distant. Fred, on the other hand, sounds practical and straightforward. And Freddy, well, Freddy sounds approachable. Freddy sounds friendly, maybe even a little mischievous. Same person, different feeling. And it raises an interesting question. If names carry feelings, maybe beliefs do too. Because when people talk about God, belief, atheism, agnosticism, we often treat it like a purely intellectual discussion. We will have arguments about it, we'll discuss philosophy, the science of it, the logic of it. But then something happens when we get into the foxhole. And by the way, guys, the foxhole isn't just war. The foxhole can be a hospital waiting room. It could be a financial disaster, a diagnosis of some sort, a divorce, and of course, a missile siren. The foxhole really is any moment where we suddenly realize we are not in control. And in that moment, something strange happens. People who spent 50 years saying they don't believe in anything find themselves suddenly whispering something like, God, if you're out there. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not here to debate theology. I'm not here to prove the existence of God. And I'm certainly not here to argue with atheists or agnostics. By the way, for those of you who are not sure of the difference, an atheist believes there is no higher power. An agnostic believes there might be something, but they have no idea what it is. These are intellectual positions, and people can hold them honestly. But the foxhole reveals something much deeper. Because when fear enters the room, logic leaves the building. What takes over? Feeling. You see, we like to think that our lives are built on logic, that we choose our beliefs logically, we choose our careers logically, we choose our various positions logically. But the truth is, most of the time, we're choosing based on feelings and then using logic to explain them. And the foxhole strips the explanation away. It takes us down to the most basic human instinct, which is hope. Hope that someone is listening. Hope that something bigger than us exists. Hope that we are not alone in the universe. And maybe that's the real point of the old saying. Maybe it's not really about religion. Maybe it's about human nature. Because deep inside, whether we admit it or not, most of us carry a quiet feeling that there is something beyond our understanding. Now, some people will call it God. Some people will call it the universe. Some people will call it a higher power. And some refuse to call it anything at all. But when life puts us in that foxhole, the conversation changes. And personally, I don't believe that's hypocrisy. I believe that's honesty. I believe that the foxhole removes our intellectual armor and reveals something much deeper inside of us. A basic human instinct to reach beyond ourselves. And maybe the real question is, or maybe I should say, maybe the real question isn't, do you believe in God or a higher power or the universe? Maybe the better question is, what do you reach for when you're in the foxhole? Because whatever that is, that might be closer to your real belief than anything you say at a dinner party. So that's what I've been thinking about this week, about names and feelings, beliefs, and foxholes. And maybe the lesson is simple. Life has a way of stripping away our theories. And when that happens, we discover what we really feel. And sometimes that's when the real conversation begins. Thank you again for spending this short amount of time with me and walking this walk with me. And remember, in this life, we always get another chance to wake up and see things a little differently. So if you have enjoyed this episode of Take Two with Freddy, please share it with a friend. And don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.